Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another session for our wonderful math manipulatives that we have available to us. My name is Chris Arsky. I'm one of the designers of professional learning with the Alberta Provincial Learning Consortia. And today we're going to talk about geoboards. Been quite a few of you that have been asking some questions about that, so I'm going to do a series of those sessions as well. So the first one we're going to do is just the introduction to give you a bit of an overview of what the geoboard is, where I can get it, those types of things. So let's begin with our land acknowledgement. In the spirit of reconciliation, we want to acknowledge that we are meeting across the province of Alberta, Treaty 6, 7, or 8, depending on where you are. And we honor and acknowledge all of the First Nations, Métis, and Inuit peoples who have lived, traveled, and gathered on these lands for thousands of years. We acknowledge that these lands are traditional meeting grounds, giving voice to its original peoples and the story of creation of this country in a way that history may have forgotten. So as I said, we're going to talk about geoboards today. And they may look like this in your school. They might look very different, or maybe you don't have any, or maybe you've never looked for them and now is going to give you that impetus to go and say, hey, where do we have these hiding? So a geoboard is really a tool, and it's a tool that's very versatile. I think for the majority of the time, people think of geoboards for what you're seeing on the screen right now, and that's just a lot of shapes. And they're very versatile for that because with elastics and the way that the pegs are set on the board, we can do those kinds of shapes that we need students to understand in our organizing idea of geometry. But it can go well beyond that as well. And so that's what we will unpack in addition to the geometry side of these. They came from an Egyptian mathematician by the name of Caleb Gatineau. And he's known for a lot of things, but this is the one thing that he is known for designing. And what he was trying to do is find a way that students could be somewhat more independent when we do work with them in geometry, rather than just giving them a picture on a piece of paper that's already pre-done. How do they actually encounter and find out about the attributes when we say, what are the attributes of a square? So they actually make the square, not just see it, not just take a ruler out and measure it, but actually make it. What's the difference between a square and a rectangle? What are the differences between different triangles, and so on? So it was a way for them to be quite engaged and independently learning about the different shapes. So the shapes is one, but we can use the geoboards for addition. We could use them for graphing. We can actually set up independent bar graphs if that's what we want to do. I could use them for arrays if I'm wanting to have students visualize the multiplication facts that we often work on in arrays. No different than what you would do in a grid paper, just somewhat more interactive or just different. So if we need to get them away from something we've been using all along, we don't really want to venture away from the format. In the case of you're using arrays, let's say with grid paper, well, this offers you exactly the same thing, just a different type of interaction for the students. Well, I could use it for perimeter. I can use it for area. I can use it for design. And then I can even use those designs later. And I would encourage you to let them play first. If you've never worked with geoboards before, kids love them and they're very engaged in them. But you do have to give them a little bit of time just to explore. And it's kind of like any other manipulative that we put in front of them. They need to just play a little bit first to see what comes to mind. And invariably, they start to make pictures. The one you see in the bottom right is so typical of what students will do while you're just handing things out. And that's fine. Let's give them those 5 minutes just to do a bit of play. Tell them, I want you to play a bit, see how it feels to stretch the elastics, and set some ground rules around those elastics. Lots of times teachers say, I'm not going to use them because they have elastics. The kids will shoot them. The kids won't shoot them as long as they understand what the rules are up front and how it's going to be. And if they're going to misuse or abuse that, then they lose that opportunity. And paper and pencil is not nearly as much fun as these are. So if that's my option and I don't follow the rules, that's my option that I'm down to. then that's what I'm going to be left with. And sure, there might be some that are going to end up being there, but honestly, most students love them and they respect the rules of them. Now, that being said, I often say, my rule is that I don't want to see anything flying. I don't want to see anything that's being stretched so that it's going to break deliberately. They do dry out. Those elastics do dry out. So if they've been in a box for a long time and you haven't used them, then that's the rule I have. And the first thing I usually hear is when they snap, when they're putting them on and they're dry. Because like you say, I didn't stretch, and that's okay. I say, no, it's okay. They're dried out. Let's just go get another one. So they're going to have those situations arise. But if they're honest enough to say, I didn't do that, then they already know they're being respectful of your rules. Where can you buy them? If you don't have them in the school and you want to use them, there's lots of places that you can buy. So you might want to just check with your office and see where do they typically order manipulatives or resources from. And these are not exclusive. These are not saying these are the only ones. These are just some of the common ones that were easy to find, that are available. But you may have some that are completely different, a different company that you use in your school, and that's fine. They all offer little different combinations of packages, so you have to kind of find out what you want. Some don't have color, some do have color, some are more transparent, some are not, they're translucent. So you have to decide again, what is it that would be best for your school? There are definitely sites, virtual sites that we can use. And virtual sites, if I'm not going to use them very often, maybe that's something you can elect to use if you have enough technology for every student. And that would be important that they have their own so that they actually can build their own. But definitely having it in front of them would be better. There's no question about it. But there's lots of places. Again, these are not saying these are the only places that you can go virtually. These are ones that I tend to lean on a little bit more because I'm familiar with them, but I also use them because each one of them offers something just a little bit different. And some of them let us go quite a bit larger. They allow us to even turn the board into a measurement tool. So it depends on what it is you want to do with the students on that given day or in that week that you're going to be unpacking outcomes. So you might want to play and dabble with them a little bit. Some are more restrictive. And if that's all you need if at that moment in time is just what's being offered by that one, then maybe you want to go there. I did include one link in here for some activities if you're looking for something after the fact. So that's it for our overview. What we're going to do now is we're going to break away just like we did in the other sessions. And I'm going to be putting together 4 different parts that we're going to explore the geoboards in. One is just way too long. And this way it kind of sections them out. And then when you can see by the titles as well, what it is that we're going to be covering, you can pick and choose. If you've never worked with them, these aren't the long pieces. So I would take the opportunity to go through all 4 parts just to familiarize yourself, because as you start to do them, you go, oh, hey, I'm doing this with my students right now. I might decide I want to do this as well. Okay, so maybe we'll see you in another session.